Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
Usually when the phone rings, right, and you hear your kid's voice on the other end, your brain doesn't, stop to run a security protocol. It's an instant biological connection. You hear the pitch of their voice, the way they take a breath, and your brain just instantly says, oh, that's them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's literally millions of years of human evolution at work.
Mm-hmm.
We are completely hardwired to trust the human voice. It's how we build society, how we connect, and fundamentally how we survive as a species.
Right. But what happens when that exact biological hardwiring, that instinctual trust is suddenly weaponized against us?
Well, that's the scary part.
Exactly. And that is the mission for today's deep dive. If you're listening to this, you already know the world is moving incredibly fast. So we're pulling together a massive stack of sources today to unpack a rapidly escalating threat that's basically turning our own ears against us. We're talking about AI-generated voice cloning and deepfake scams.
Yeah, the source stack is huge today.
It is. We have intelligence from European Parliament reports, technical breakdowns from the ABA Banking Journal, warnings from the FTC, and cybersecurity insights from Knifish, BECU, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance.
And, the scope of the material we're looking at today really highlights a global shift in cybercrime. Like, we are not just talking about isolated incidents anymore. We're looking at an entirely new infrastructure of fraud.
Right, and we need to set the stakes right out of the gate here because the numbers are just staggering. In 2024 alone, Americans over the age of 60 lost nearly $4.9 billion to cybercrime.
Wow.
Yeah, and according to one of the reports we reviewed, an AI deepfake attack occurred every 5 minutes. Let that sink in for a second. Every 5 minutes.
That's just wild.
It is. But look, our goal today isn't just to sound the alarm and scare you. We want to give you, the listener, practical, actionable knowledge so you can actually outsmart these scammers.
Right. And to understand how to defend against this, we really first have to look at the democratization of deception. Because, the technology to flawlessly mimic another human being used to be restricted to, state-sponsored intelligence agencies or high-end Hollywood studios.
Sure, like million-dollar budgets.
Exactly. But now, the barrier to entry has essentially vanished.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with how this actually works on a personal level. I think most of us are familiar with the old grandparent scam or the family emergency scam.
Oh, yeah. Classic social engineering.
Right. 10 years ago, that scam involved a phone call with a really bad static connection. The scammer would talk incredibly fast and just say, "Grandma, it's me. I'm in jail. I need bail money." And they basically relied on the panic and the static to cover up the fact that they didn't actually sound like the grandson.
Yeah, that old method was purely a numbers game, just relying on confusion. But today, the static is gone. It literally is the grandson's voice.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. Scammers are using generative AI to perfectly clone the voice of a loved one. And the technical sources we reviewed point out a pretty terrifying reality. Scammers only need between 3 to 30 seconds of audio to create a convincing clone.
Wait. 3 seconds? That's like a single voicemail greeting.
Literally just, "Hi, you've reached my phone. Leave a message." That's enough.
Or like a throwaway TikTok video.
Yep.
And with, 53% of people currently sharing their voices online in some public capacity, the data pool for criminals to pull from is massive. But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, 3 seconds just doesn't seem like enough time for a computer to learn an entire vocabulary.
Well, see, that's the thing. The AI isn't learning a vocabulary. It's mapping a topography.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Think of it like a digital tracing paper placed over your vocal cords.
Mm.
The software analyzes the specific acoustic geometry of a person's vocal tract. So the timbre, the pitch, the unique resonance of how sound bounces around their throat and nasal cavity.
Oh, wow. So it's capturing the physical shape of your voice.
Yeah, exactly. Once it maps those mathematical parameters, it can apply that unique acoustic filter to any type text.
And it has spawned an entire underground economy, hasn't it? I mean, according to reports from groups like Interpol, criminal networks are now literally selling voice cloning as a service.
Yeah, the business model of cybercrime has evolved into a software as a service model, just like legit tech companies.
It's crazy.
It is. They've built these user-friendly platforms that put sophisticated voice cloning technology into the hands of thousands of bad actors worldwide who, honestly, possess absolutely zero technical skills.
So they don't even need to be hackers.
Not at all. A scammer just pays a monthly subscription fee, uploads a 3-second clip of your daughter stripped from her public Instagram profile, types in a script, and the AI instantly outputs a frantic, crying phone call in her exact voice.
God, the human toll of this is just brutal. One of the sources highlights a mother in Florida who got a call from what she absolutely 100% believed was her crying daughter. In a total panic, this mother withdrew $15,000 in cash and literally put it in a box for a driver to pick up.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. Or there's that CNN story of Jennifer DiStefano who answered the phone and heard her daughter's cloned voice sobbing, followed by a scammer demanding a $1 million ransom. The trauma of that moment for her is incredibly real.
And that psychological manipulation is the absolute core of the attack. They create an artificial state of extreme panic or urgency.
Right.
A jail call, a car wreck, a kidnapping.
Right. But I have to ask about the corporate side of things here. I mean, I understand how a panicked parent falls for this in the heat of the moment, but one of our sources mentioned a Hong Kong company that lost over $25 million because an employee was tricked by a deepfake.
Yep, $25 million.
How does a fake voice on a phone bypass modern corporate security? A transfer that large requires multi-factor authentication, multiple sign-offs. Surely seasoned professionals aren't just wiring money because someone sounds like the CEO on the phone.
Well, what's fascinating here is that assumes the voice clone is being used to simply ask for money.
Oh, they're doing something else.
Exactly. In complex corporate attacks, the clone voice is used to bypass the human element of the security protocol or to facilitate the theft of the actual authentication codes.
Sneaky.
Very. The FBI warned that malicious actors have successfully impersonated senior U.S. officials to extract sensitive info. They don't just call and ask for cash. They call an employee pretending to be, say, the IT director.
Okay.
They say there's a critical server failure, and they desperately need the employee to read them the 2-factor authentication code that was just sent to their phone to stop a total system crash.
Wow. So they bypass the firewall in the computer by attacking the firewall in the brain.
Perfectly put. By manufacturing a sudden corporate crisis, the attacker triggers the employee's amygdala. The rational brain literally shuts down.
Because they're in fight or flight.
Right. The employee stops questioning why the IT director is asking for a code because their biology is just screaming at them to resolve the immediate emergency.
Okay, so human ears are easily fooled when we're panicked. We've established that. But what about the machines? We have spent the last decade being told by banks and tech companies that our biometric data is the ultimate password. Your voice is uniquely your own, they said. How are the banking systems holding up against this tech?
Well, the research from the ABA Banking Journal indicates a total paradigm shift. Voice biometrics, which, was once the absolute gold standard for banking authentication, is now considered highly vulnerable.
Highly vulnerable. Great.
Yeah. The data shows that just 1 minute of cloned audio is enough to create human-quality speech capable of completely bypassing modern bank security systems.
Wait, so the scammers aren't just calling grandma for gift cards anymore. They're calling the bank pretending to be you.
Yes. And to get the audio they need for that, hackers use a technique called vishing, or voice phishing.
How does that work?
So you might receive a seemingly innocent call from an unknown number. The caller simply asks, "Hello, who's there?" or "Can you hear me?"
And you just say, "Yes, I can hear you."
Exactly. They just want you to speak a few simple phrases. They record that, map the topography of your voice like we talked about, and then use that cloned audio to bypass what banks call step-up authentication.
Okay, let's define step-up authentication for a second for the listener.
Yeah.
That's essentially the bank's digital bouncer, right? Like when you try to do something unusual, like transfer a large sum of money or change a password, the bank says, okay, we need a second form of ID, and that second form used to be recognizing your voice pattern.
Precisely. So the system prompts the caller to state their name or account number. The AI plays back the cloned voice reading those numbers, and the bank just unlocks the vault.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Reading through the European Parliament report, it becomes pretty clear this isn't just a technology failure. It's a massive systemic and legal failure, too. Because the telecom providers, like the phone companies, they often have the call analytics to see that fraudulent voice-over IP calls are being routed through the network.
Oh yeah, they know. The analytics are incredibly sophisticated. Telecoms can see thousands of calls originating from a single digital source and spoofing local area codes.
Right. But because of strict EU privacy laws like GDPR, the telecom providers are legally prevented from sharing that specific call metadata with the banks or law enforcement in real time.
It's incredibly frustrating for them.
It's like having a security guard who is legally required to watch a bank robbery happen on the security cameras, but the law says he isn't allowed to pick up the phone and call the police to stop it. Like, how does the financial sector even begin to fix that?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights a massive digital divide. AI technology is evolving infinitely faster than our legislative frameworks.
Always does.
Always. The bad actors exploit the global telecommunications infrastructure seamlessly, while the good actors, the banks, the telecoms, the police, are bound by jurisdictional red tape. I mean, compare the EU to Singapore, for instance.
What's Singapore doing?
Singapore recently passed anti-scam laws that allow authorities to instantly freeze a victim's bank account if telecommunication fraud is detected. But globally, the balance is still heavily tilted toward the attackers.
Which explains why the ABA Banking Journal notes that financial institutions are basically abandoning voice biometrics altogether. They are shifting towards something called passive facial biometrics with liveness detection.
Yeah, that's the new frontier.
But how exactly does a camera detect liveness?
Liveness detection is actually fascinating. Instead of just looking at the shape of your face like a photograph, the camera analyzes biological realities.
Like what?
It looks for the microfluctuations of light reflecting off the blood pulsing just beneath the skin of your face.
No way. It can see your pulse.
Yep. It checks the 3D geometry of your cornea. It's looking for the tiny, involuntary muscle movements that a static image or a basic screen recording just cannot replicate.
But even there, the criminals are adapting, right? Because the sources mention something called a video injection attack, currently outpacing traditional physical attacks 5-to-1.
The escalation is constant, unfortunately. In a video injection attack, the scammer doesn't hold a tablet showing a deepfake up to the camera lens.
Right, that would be too easy to catch.
Exactly. Instead, they use malware to hijack the authentication application itself. The app thinks it's looking through the device's physical camera, but the attacker is actually feeding a digital stream of synthetic, AI-generated video directly into the app's code.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it completely bypasses the physical camera lens and all those liveness detection checks we just talked about.
Okay, so if the laws are lagging and the banks are abandoning voice passwords and hackers are injecting video directly into the apps, what does that leave for you and me? It means we have to become our own audio detectives. We have to train our ears to spot the artificial before the panic sets in. And luckily, our sources provided some incredibly specific practical tells.
Yes. The intelligence from Canafish outlines 10 specific techniques to spot AI-generated audio. And honestly, it all comes down to understanding the mechanical difference between how a human generates speech and how a computer generates sound.
Let's walk through the biggest ones. The first tell is what they call unnatural prosody, which basically means flat emotion.
Right.
When humans speak, we naturally shift our pitch and rhythm. Like if we ask a question, our pitch goes up at the end. We stress words like urgent or now. AI often fails to do this because it's processing text sequentially.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the urgency.
Exactly. It's just mathematically predicting the next word. So it sounds lifeless.
And that sequential processing leads right into the second major tell. Missing micropauses. Think about how human lungs work. We have to breathe, we hesitate, we say, while our brain catches up with our mouth.
Kind of like we're doing right now.
Exactly. These tiny imperfections, dictated by our physical anatomy, are what make speech real. AI doesn't have lungs, it doesn't run out of breath. So it breezes through long, complex sentences with this unnatural, breathless smoothness.
Or, conversely, if you are interacting with an AI in real time, there will be a distinct, awkward processing delay before it replies. It completely breaks the natural, rapid back-and-forth flow of human dialogue because the software is literally taking seconds to compute the response.
Yep. Another crucial audio cue is what researchers call stilted sound blends.
What's that?
When humans speak, our mouths naturally take shortcuts. We slur words together. We don't say did, we say did you. We don't say what are you, we say whatcha.
Oh, right, sure.
AI over-enunciates. It treats every single word like it's reading from a pronunciation dictionary. It's simply too perfect to be human.
Right. You also want to listen for recycled phrases and static background noise. Because AI generates speech from waveforms, the background noise is often baked directly into the audio file. Like if the person claims they're walking outside in the wind, does the ambient noise shift and change dynamically?
Usually not.
Yeah, often in deepfakes, the background noise is a static loop. Or you'll hear sudden channel jumps where the audio goes from being studio crisp to muffled like they're talking through a pillow for absolutely no logical reason.
And we cannot forget jargon and contextual flubs. An AI might speak perfectly, but it feels miserably at cultural context.
Give me an example.
It mispronounces brand names, saying Bose instead of Bose. Or it will spell out an acronym that industry professionals say is a word, like saying SOC instead of SOC for a security operations center.
That's a huge red flag.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It also totally fails at contextual performance. If a human quotes Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "I'll be back," they naturally lower their voice and do a bad impression. And AI just reads the text in a flat monotone.
Okay, I have to challenge the strategy a bit, though. Let's really unpack this. If generative AI is trained on massive databases of human speech, won't it eventually learn to say and dija?
That's the million-dollar question.
Won't the developers program it to add artificial breaths and do the bad Arnold impression? It feels like we're in an arms race where we are looking for typos in a phishing email, but the scammers are just buying better spell check. Will these behavioral tellies even work a year from now?
Honestly, the technical consensus is that you are entirely correct. It is a technological armed race, and human ears will eventually lose.
Great, that's reassuring.
Well, there are specialized tools out there right now, like Resemble Detect or the Deepfake-o-meter from Michigan State University, that do not rely on listening. They look at the actual audio spectrogram.
Okay, yeah, I've seen images of spectrograms. They look like heat maps of sound. How does that expose a deepfake?
It exposes the physical origin of the sound. The human vocal tract is a wet, messy, asymmetrical biological instrument. When you map a real human voice visually on a spectrogram, it leaves jagged, irregular, messy frequency bands.
Because we're messy creatures.
Exactly. But when you map an AI-generated voice, the software is producing mathematically perfect audio. So the spectrogram shows smooth, uniform, unnaturally pristine bands of sound. The machines can clearly see the fake.
But the average person doesn't have a spectrogram app running in their brain when the phone rings at 2 a.m.
No, they don't. Which means our ultimate defense cannot be purely technical. As the AI smooths out its sound blends and learns to fake micropauses, relying solely on your ears is a losing strategy. The defense has to be behavioral.
And this brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial part of our deep dive today, the low-tech human shield. As I was going through the materials from the National Cybersecurity Alliance and the Elder Fraud Advocates, they all kept hammering home one incredibly simple low-tech strategy, the concept of the family safe word.
The safe word is remarkably effective because it introduces an offline variable that the AI simply cannot compute. A safe word, or family code word, is a pre-agreed-upon phrase that only your trusted inner circle knows.
Right.
But the absolute key to this strategy is that the word must be completely absent from your digital footprint.
Right, so you can't use a pet's name or your mother's maiden name or the high school you went to because the scammers have already scraped all of that data from your public Facebook page.
Exactly. The phrase needs to be nonsensical out of context. Something like purple cactus or morning starfish. If you receive an urgent, panicked call from a loved one asking for money or sensitive information, the behavioral defense dictates that you interrupt them and ask for the safe word.
And a real family member might be confused for a second.
Sure, they'll be like, why? But they will give it to you. An AI will glitch trying to improvise around it, or the human scammer operating the software will just simply hang up.
Now, the sources emphasize that this isn't just for families worrying about the grandparent scam. Coworkers need safe words for authorizing financial transfers. Caregivers absolutely need them for the elderly adults they assist.
Yes, everyone needs one.
And you should establish one safe word for your household and a completely different one for your professional team. And it goes without saying, never text it and never store it in a digital document. Keep it offline.
And, if you find yourself in a situation where you do not have a safe word established, the alternative defense is the on-the-spot challenge.
Okay, what's that?
Ask the caller to improvise an answer to a highly personal, undocumented question. Ask them the name of the neighbor's dog from 20 years ago, or ask them about a specific inside joke from a childhood vacation.
Something that AI couldn't possibly scrape.
Right. Generative AI struggles immensely with live improvisation based on offline, undocumented human memories.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I was thinking about this as I digested all this research. We are basically reverting back to World War II spy tactics. We are instituting secret countersigns at the door because we literally cannot trust the uniforms people are wearing anymore.
That is the exact behavioral shift the Federal Trade Commission is recommending. The golden rule from the FTC is simple, but incredibly hard to execute in the moment. Don't trust the voice.
Even if it sounds exactly like them.
Even if it sounds exactly like your spouse, your child, or your boss,
Yeah.
you must hang up. Then call that person back directly using a known, trusted phone number saved in your contacts. You can never trust caller ID because phone numbers are effortlessly spoofed.
It really requires you to completely remove the emotion from the situation. Scammers rely entirely on urgency. If you slow down, the attack falls apart.
You also have to proactively starve the scammers of the oxygen they need to build these clones. Limit your digital footprint. Set your social media profiles to private. Be incredibly mindful of posting high-quality audio or video of your family publicly.
Lock it down.
Exactly. And always remember the final failsafe. No legitimate emergency ever requires you to pay bail, medical bills, or corporate invoices using untraceable methods like cryptocurrency, wire transfers, or gift cards. Once that money is transferred, it cannot be recovered.
All right, let's bring this all together. In the age of generative AI, your ears can and will lie to you. The biological instinct to trust a familiar voice has become a critical vulnerability. But you are not powerless here. You can protect your digital footprint. You can limit who has access to your voice online. Most importantly, you can go to your family, your partner, and your team at work and establish a safe word today.
Just do it today.
Yeah, purple cactus, whatever it is. And when that phone rings and panic strikes, take a breath, hang up, and verify.
It is entirely about changing our default societal posture from immediate trust to polite verification.
But I want to leave you with a lingering thought to mull over. We started this deep dive talking about the biological hardwiring of trust. If technology is rapidly approaching a point where we literally cannot distinguish synthetic media from reality, where a phone call, a live video stream, or a photograph could all be fabricated instantly and flawlessly, does our entire societal definition of truth have to change?
This raises an incredibly profound question. Will we reach a point where we have to completely stop trusting our own five senses?
Right. Will we be forced to rely entirely on shared secrets, offline safe words, and encrypted digital ledgers just to know for sure that we are talking to the people we love? It is a heavy thought, but it is the reality we are walking into. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep learning. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.